Hi, I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to read you the story of my Lisa, which is titled like this. I let my sister's in-laws live in my house while I was on a business trip abroad, but when I returned, they changed the locks. My sister said, "You can rent an apartment." So I called the police and enjoyed their anger. Well, let's go. Hi, everyone. My name is my Lisa, and I'm 32 years old. I work for this big company that has branches all over Europe, and my job is basically to travel around and check how these foreign offices are doing. It sounds cooler than it actually is. Most of the time, I'm just looking at spreadsheets and sitting in boring meetings. I got assigned to this 6-month business trip that would take me to 8 different countries. The company pays for everything, so I can't really complain. But 6 months is a long time to be away from home. I live in this nice house that I bought 3 years ago. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I love it. When you're gone for half a year, you can't just leave a house empty. So I asked my parents if they could keep an eye on the place while I was gone. My parents are Margaret and David. They're both 58 and retired. Mom used to be a teacher, and Dad worked in construction. They're good people, just a bit dramatic sometimes. I also have a younger sister named Jessica. She's 28 and got married about a year ago to this guy named Mark. Nice enough guy, works in accounting. Jessica always was the favorite child. She's prettier than me, more social, better at keeping Mom and Dad happy. "Of course, honey, we'll take care of everything," Mom said when I asked them about watching the house. "Just give us the spare key." I really appreciated this. I told them, "I promise I'll bring you some amazing gifts from Europe." So I gave them my house key and went over the basics. Water the plants, bring in the mail, run the water once in a while, standard house sitting stuff. I flew out to Frankfurt first. The work was fine. Checking books, reviewing procedures, writing reports. I moved from city to city doing the same thing over and over. About 2 weeks after I left home, I got a call from Mom. "Hi, honey. How's the trip going?" "Pretty good. How's everything at home?" "The house is fine, actually. That's why I'm calling. We have a favor to ask you. You remember Jessica's in-laws? Mark's parents, Robert and Linda?" "Yeah, from the wedding. They seemed nice. They just moved to our city, and they're looking for a house but don't want to waste money on rent. We were thinking maybe they could stay at your place temporarily just until they find their own place." I felt my stomach drop. "Mom, I don't know. That's my house. They're family now, and you met them. They're very nice people. It would mean so much to Jessica." I thought about it. They had seemed decent at the wedding, and my house was just sitting there empty. "Fine, but only temporarily, and I want them out before I get back." "Of course, thank you so much, honey." An hour later, Jessica called me. "My Elisa, thank you so much. This will really help me get closer to Mark's parents. Just make sure they understand it's temporary." "Of course, they're so grateful." After that, I got really busy with work. I was checking all the foreign branches one by one and didn't have much time to communicate with my relatives. The weeks flew by as I traveled from country to country. But about 2 months later, I got a call that changed everything. It was from Mrs. Patterson, my elderly neighbor. She's the sweet woman who lives next door, and I'd given her my phone number before I left, just in case there were any problems with the house. "My Elisa, it's Mrs. Patterson." "Oh, hi. Is everything okay with the house?" "Well, that's why I'm calling. Your new tenants seemed very decent at first, but now there are regular parties happening at your house." "Parties?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Yes, dear. Your parents and other people gather there, and they have a lot of fun, almost until morning." "I thought you should know." I was shocked. I couldn't imagine elderly people like Robert and Linda throwing parties in my house. "Are you sure?" "I'm afraid so. I even took some photos and videos. I can send them to you if you'd like." A few minutes later, my phone started buzzing with messages from Mrs. Patterson. Photos and videos of my house at night with loud music, people standing around on my lawn, cars parked everywhere. The videos showed guests behaving terribly, throwing garbage around, shouting loudly, acting like complete slobs. I was absolutely shocked. These people were treating my house like some kind of party venue. I immediately called my mother. "Mom, the neighbors are complaining about Robert and Linda. They're throwing parties in my house." There was a pause. "Oh, that. Well, my Lisa, nothing terrible is happening. They're just making new friends in the city and inviting them over sometimes. Sometimes Mom, this looks like every night, and look how these people are behaving. You're being dramatic, honey. I don't like this at all. Mom, this needs to stop. And then she hung up on me just like that. I called back immediately, but got voicemail. I tried Dad's phone. Same thing. They weren't answering. So I called Jessica. Jessica, I need Robert and Linda's phone number. I need to talk to them about what's happening at my house. What are you talking about? They're throwing parties. The neighbors are complaining. My Lisa, you're totally overreacting. They're just being social. I want their phone number so I can talk to them myself. I'm not giving you their number. You're making a big deal out of nothing. And then she hung up too. After my family hung up on me, I was so angry I couldn't even think straight. Here I was, thousands of miles away trying to do my job, and these people were turning my house into some kind of party central while my own parents and sister acted like I was the problem. I stopped calling them after that. What was the point? They'd made it clear whose side they were on, and it wasn't mine. I threw myself into work instead, checking branch after branch, writing report after report. At least work made sense. Numbers don't lie to you or hang up on you when you're trying to have a reasonable conversation. The next few weeks dragged by. Every night, I'd lie in whatever hotel bed I was in, thinking about what was happening to my house. Were they still throwing parties? Were people sleeping in my bed, using my bathroom, going through my stuff? The thought of strangers pawing through my personal belongings made me sick. I was supposed to be in Europe for 6 months total, but I started working like crazy to get everything done early. I wanted to get home and deal with this mess as soon as possible. I worked weekends, stayed up late writing reports, did everything I could to finish ahead of schedule. Finally, I managed to get everything done about 2 weeks early. I was exhausted, but I didn't care. I just wanted to go home and reclaim my house from these party animals. 3 days before my flight, I sent text messages to both my mother and Jessica. The message was simple. I'm coming home in 3 days. Make sure Robert and Linda are out of my house by then. I saw that both of them read the messages. You know how it shows when someone reads your text? Yeah, they both read them, but neither one responded. Not a word. That made me even angrier. The flight home felt like it took forever. I kept checking my phone, hoping maybe one of them would text me back, but nothing. Complete silence. When I finally landed at the airport, I was dead tired, but also wired with nervous energy. I grabbed a taxi and told the driver my address. During the whole ride, I kept thinking about what I'd find when I got there. Maybe Robert and Linda had already moved out, and my family was just too embarrassed to respond to my text. Maybe the house would be clean and empty, waiting for me. But as we pulled up to my street, I saw cars in my driveway. My heart sank. I paid the taxi driver and walked up to my front door with my suitcase. I pulled out my house key, the same key I'd had for 3 years, and tried to put it in the lock. It didn't fit. I tried again, thinking maybe I was just tired and not doing it right. But no, the key definitely didn't fit. The lock was completely different. For a few seconds, I just stood there in complete shock. These people had actually changed the locks to keep me out of my own home. I started knocking on the door hard. Hey, open up. This is my house. I could see lights turning on inside, but nobody came to the door. I kept knocking and shouting, I know you're in there. Open this door right now. Finally, after about 5 minutes of me pounding on my own front door like some kind of crazy person, Linda opened it. She was wearing a bathrobe and looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. Lisa, you're back early. Yeah, I'm back early, and I want to know why my key doesn't work in my own front door. We changed the locks for security reasons. Look, we haven't found a house yet, so we're not ready to leave. You'll have to stay somewhere else for now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman was standing in my doorway telling me that I couldn't come into my own house. Are you insane? This is my house. We'll discuss this later. It's late, and we don't want to disturb the neighbors. And then she closed the door in my face, at my own house. I stood there for a minute, shaking with rage. Then I called Jessica. Jessica, your mother-in-law just told me I can't come into my own house because they changed the locks. What the hell is going on? Lisa, please don't make a scene. Come to Mom and Dad's house. We need to have a serious conversation about this. I didn't have much choice. I couldn't get into my own house, and I needed answers. I left my suitcase with Mrs. Patterson next door, at least she was still on my side, and drove to my parents' house. When I walked in, it was like walking into an ambush. Mom, Dad, Jessica, and Mark were all sitting in the living room, and they all had these serious, determined looks on their faces, like they'd been planning this. "What's going on?" I demanded. "Why can't I get into my own house?" Jessica stood up. "Sit down, my Elisa. We had a family meeting last week, and we made some decisions. Robert and Linda are going to stay in your house." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "What do you mean, stay in my house?" They spent some of the money from selling their old house on traveling and shopping and other things, so now they don't have enough money to buy a decent place here. Mark and I are going to save up and help them with the down payment, but that's going to take time. "How much time?" Mark spoke up for the first time. "We need to save about $100,000. $100,000? I almost choked. "And where am I supposed to live while you're saving up this money?" Jessica sat back down and looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "You can rent an apartment for now. It's not that big a deal." I looked at my parents, waiting for them to say something. Anything. To tell Jessica she was crazy, that this was my house and I had every right to live in it. Instead, Dad nodded. "It's a good solution, my Lisa. It helps the family." Mom added, "It's just temporary, honey." I realized then that they were all in on this. My whole family had gotten together and decided to give away my house without even asking me. They'd had a meeting, a family meeting, and I wasn't even invited. I smiled at them. It wasn't a happy smile. "Okay," I said, "I'll solve this problem on my own." They all looked relieved, like they thought I was agreeing to their insane plan. Jessica actually smiled back at me. "I knew you'd understand eventually. You're such a good sister." I didn't say anything else. I just turned around and walked out of their house, shaking with anger. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd convinced me to just roll over and let these people steal my house while I paid rent somewhere else. I drove back to my house in a complete rage. The nerve of these people. My own family had basically sold me out. And now I was supposed to just accept that strangers were living in my house while I paid rent somewhere else, like some kind of homeless person. When I got back to my street, I went straight to Mrs. Patterson's house to get my suitcase and figure out what to do next. "Oh dear, you look upset," she said when she opened the door. "Did you get into your house?" "They changed the locks," I told her, "and my family thinks I should just rent an apartment while these people live in my house indefinitely." Mrs. Patterson's eyes went wide. "That's terrible. You can't let them get away with that." "I don't plan to, but right now I need somewhere to sleep. Do you know any hotels nearby?" "Nonsense. You're staying here tonight. I have a guest room and it's getting late. We can figure out what to do in the morning." I was so grateful I almost cried. At least one person was on my side in this mess. Mrs. Patterson made me some tea and we sat in her kitchen while I told her everything that had happened, about the parties, about my family hanging up on me, about the family meeting where they decided to give away my house. I went to bed that night knowing exactly what I was going to do in the morning. I woke up early, around 7 a.m. I still had 2 weeks of vacation time left since I'd finished the Europe work ahead of schedule, which meant I had 2 weeks to fix this mess. The first thing I did was call the police. "I need to report squatters in my house," I told the dispatcher. "People are living in my house without permission. They changed the locks and they're refusing to leave." "We'll send someone over. What's your address?" I gave them my address, and within 30 minutes, 2 police officers showed up. I met them outside my house. "You're the homeowner?" one of them asked. "Yes. These people have been staying here temporarily, but now they've changed the locks and are refusing to let me in." The officers walked up to my front door and knocked. It took a few minutes, but eventually Robert answered. He looked nervous when he saw the cops. "Is there a problem, officers?" "We understand there's a dispute about this residence. Can we come in and talk?" Robert let them in, and Linda appeared a minute later. They immediately started talking about how I had given them permission to stay there, how they were family, all that garbage. But then I showed the police the locks. "These are different from the locks that were here when I left. They changed them without my knowledge and refused to let me in last night." One of the officers examined the locks, then looked back at Robert and Linda. "Is this true? Did you change the locks?" "Well, yes, but for security reasons," Linda said. "Ma'am, this is her house. You can't change the locks on someone else's property without permission, and you can't refuse to let the homeowner into their own house." "But we don't have anywhere else to go," Robert protested. "That's not our problem," the second officer said. "You're acting illegally here. If you don't leave voluntarily, you can be arrested for trespassing." Robert and Linda looked at me with pure hatred. I could see Linda pulling out her phone, probably calling my sister or my mother. "How long do we have?" Linda asked. "You need to be out today. If we get another call about this, you'll be arrested." Sure enough, about 5 minutes after the police left, my phone started ringing. It was Jessica, but I didn't answer. Let her leave a voicemail. I finally went into my own house for the first time in months, and I was furious at what I saw. They had completely rearranged everything. The living room was painted a different color, some ugly beige that I hated. All my furniture was moved around. They had hung their own family photos on my walls. There were stains on my carpet that definitely weren't there before. "What the hell is this?" I said to Linda, who was standing there watching me. "It's just paint and some pictures. If you don't put everything back the way it was immediately, I'm going to sue you for property damage and demand compensation for illegal renovations." That got their attention. They looked at each other nervously. "We'll change it back," Robert said quickly. "You better. And you better do it fast." They started packing their stuff and taking down their photos. I watched them like a hawk, making sure they didn't damage anything else or try to steal something. About an hour later, I heard loud voices outside. Then my front door burst open, and in came my parents, Jessica and Mark. They all looked furious. "My Lisa, what have you done?" Mom yelled. "You called the police on Robert and Linda?" "They were squatting in my house illegally. Of course I called the police." "They're family," Jessica shouted. "You're being selfish and you're ruining my relationship with my in-laws. If you care so much about your in-laws, let them live with you in your apartment." "Our apartment is too small," Mark said. "Then find them a bigger apartment and pay for it yourself. But they're not living in my house." Dad stepped forward. "My Lisa, be reasonable. Where are they supposed to go?" "I don't care where they go, as long as it's not here." Jessica's face was red with anger. "You're being horrible. They spent their money and now they need help. They spent their money on parties and travel and shopping. That's not my problem. They're going to think I come from a family of selfish people." "Maybe you do." Jessica looked like she was going to cry. Or hit me. I couldn't tell which. I picked up my phone and held it up. "You all have exactly 1 hour to get out of my house or I'm calling the police again." We all stood there glaring at each other for a minute. Then Robert and Linda came downstairs with their suitcases. "We're ready," Robert said quietly. "Good," I said. They loaded their stuff into their car while my family stood around looking defeated. Before they left, Linda gave me one last dirty look. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is." My parents, Jessica and Mark, left right after them without saying another word to me. I watched them all drive away from my living room window. Then I locked the door behind them, and finally, for the first time in months, I was alone in my own house. I called a locksmith immediately and had all the locks changed to new ones. Then I called a cleaning company to come deal with whatever damage these people had done to my house. For the next few days, I just enjoyed being home. I slept in my own bed, cooked in my own kitchen, watched TV on my own couch. It felt amazing to have my space back. I went back to work after my vacation ended, and life started feeling normal again. Nobody from my family called me, which was fine by me. I figured they were all mad, and eventually they'd get over it. Or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I had my house back, and that's what mattered. For about 2 months, things were quiet. I worked, I hung out with friends, I did normal people stuff. Mrs. Patterson and I became even better friends after everything that happened. She'd invite me over for dinner sometimes, and we'd laugh about how ridiculous my family had been. "I still can't believe they thought you'd just accept that," she said one evening over coffee. "I can't believe it either, but it's over now." I really thought it was over. I should have known better. 2 months after I kicked them out, my phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and saw it was Mom. My first instinct was to ignore it, but I was curious what she wanted after all this time. "Hello? Hi, my Lisa. How are you?" Her voice was different, fake sweet, like when she wanted something big. "I'm fine. What do you want?" I was hoping we could talk about the situation with Robert and Linda. "What about them? Are they still living with Jessica and Mark?" "Well, yes, and that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about." I had a feeling I knew where this was going, but I let her continue. "Jessica is getting really tired of having them in their apartment. It's very crowded, and it's putting stress on their marriage." "Okay, so they should find their own place." "That's the thing, honey. They still don't have enough money for a house. They need help with the down payment." "How much help?" "About 100,000. I almost laughed. "And?" I prompted. "Well, we were wondering if you could loan them the money." I did laugh then, out loud. "Are you serious right now?" "My Lisa, they're family. And Jessica really needs this. Her marriage is suffering because of the stress." "Mom, let me get this straight. These people spent their house money on parties and shopping. Then they moved into my house without asking me, threw parties, trashed the place, changed my locks, and refused to let me in. Now you want me to give them 100,000? It would be a loan. With what collateral? They don't have any money. Melissa, please, Jessica is miserable. Then Jessica and Mark can take out a loan themselves if they want to help Robert and Linda so badly. They can't afford that kind of loan on their salaries. Then maybe Robert and Linda should get jobs and save up their own money instead of expecting everyone else to support them. Mom's voice got sharper. You're being selfish, my Lisa. This is your sister we're talking about. No, this is Robert and Linda we're talking about, and I wouldn't give them a penny if my life depended on it. But Jessica made her choice when she sided with them instead of me. She can live with the consequences. Melissa, you can't mean that. I absolutely mean that. And you know what else I mean? I mean that I'm done with all of you. What? You heard me. I'm done. You all chose Robert and Linda over me, your own daughter and sister. You hung up on me when I needed help. You had a family meeting to give away my house and didn't even invite me. You expected me to just roll over and pay rent while strangers lived in my house. Well, guess what? I don't need family like that. Melissa, don't say things you'll regret. I'm not going to regret anything. I'm going to hang up now, and I don't want you to call me again. Melissa, I hung up on her, just like she'd hung up on me months earlier. But I wasn't done yet. I went through my phone and blocked every single one of their numbers. Mom, Dad, Jessica, Mark, all of them. Then I blocked them on social media too. If they wanted to choose Robert and Linda over me, that was fine. But they weren't going to keep coming back asking for money when their brilliant plan didn't work out. The next few weeks were actually really peaceful. Nobody called to guilt trip me or ask for favors. Nobody expected me to solve their problems or sacrifice my own comfort for people who didn't even like me. I started spending more time with friends who actually cared about me. I dated a little bit. I focused on work and got a promotion. Life was good. Sometimes I wondered what happened with Robert and Linda. Were they still living in Jessica's tiny apartment? Had they found jobs? Did they ever buy their own house? But honestly, I didn't care enough to find out. Mrs. Patterson would sometimes ask if I missed my family. Not really, I'd tell her. I miss the idea of having a family that actually cared about me. But these people? No. Don't you think they'll come around eventually? Maybe, but I'm not holding my breath. And even if they do, they burn that bridge pretty thoroughly. It's been almost a year now since I blocked all their numbers. I have no idea where Robert and Linda ended up living. I don't know if Jessica and Mark are still married, or if the stress of having unwanted house guests broke them up. I don't know if my parents ever realized how badly they screwed up. And you know what? I sleep just fine not knowing any of that. I have a good job, a nice house, and friends who actually respect me. I don't have to deal with people who think I exist just to solve their problems or bankroll their bad decisions. I learned that blood doesn't make someone family. Respect and loyalty make someone family. And my biological family had neither.